I get it when you're thinking about adding a soft-serve ice cream machine to a small CAF, a food truck, or even a home-based dessert side hustle. The fear of dropping a few $100s on a unit that turns out to be more hassle than help is real. You've probably seen a ton of glossy ads promising endless swirls of vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry, but you're wondering if the machine actually lives up to the hype in a real-world kitchen. And of course, you want to make sure that the money you spend translates into consistent sales, not just a fancy countertop that gathers dust. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So let's break down what the VEVOR commercial ice cream machine really brings to the table, and whether it makes sense for the kind of operation you're running. I'm not going to start with a list of wattage or a spec sheet. Instead, I'm going to walk through the practical side of daily use, what it feels like to set it up, how it behaves when you're pushing out dozens of cones an hour, and where the compromises show up. First off, the machine's headline numbers up to 28 liters per hour, 2200 W motor, 2 6-liter hoppers sound impressive. In practice, that translates into the ability to keep a steady flow of soft serve without constantly stopping to reload. If you run a snack shop that serves a steady stream of customers during lunchtime, the dual hoppers let you keep 2 flavors ready at once. I can picture a scenario where one hopper is loaded with classic vanilla for kids, while the other churns a richer chocolate for adults, and you can switch between them with the press of a button. That's a genuine time saver compared to single hopper machines where you'd have to finish a batch, clean the hopper, and then start the next flavor. The pre-cooling fresh keeping feature is another point that often gets lost in marketing blurbs. What it does, in simple terms, is chill the hopper before the mix even hits the freezing barrel. For a busy vendor, that means you spend less time waiting for the machine to reach serving temperature. In real life, you can pull the first serving within 10 minutes of turning the unit on, assuming you've preloaded the mix. That's a solid advantage if you're operating on a tight schedule, like a farmer's market stall that opens at 10 a.m. and needs to be ready for the first wave of customers without a long warm-up period. Now, let's talk about the hopper agitation system. The machine uses an internal agitator that constantly stirs the mix inside each hopper, keeping it from separating or forming ice crystals. For anyone who has tried to keep a homemade custard base from settling overnight, this is a relief. In a commercial setting, the agitation means you can keep a batch of mix in the hopper for a few hours without worrying that the texture will degrade. That said, the agitator isn't a magic solution for poorly formulated recipes. You still need a mix that's balanced for soft serve. If you try to push a very low-fat base through the machine, you may notice a grainier texture, because the agitation can't compensate for insufficient fat content. So the machine works best with mixes designed for soft serve, whether you buy a pre-mixed blend or develop your own with the right stabilizers. Ease of operation is a big selling point for a countertop unit that you might have to clean and reload multiple times a day. The control panel is straightforward: power, start/stop, and a couple of temperature knobs. There's no need to navigate through menus or calibrate sensors. In a busy kitchen, that simplicity reduces the chance of operator error. I've seen staff members who are new to ice cream making be able to run a batch after a 5-minute walkthrough. The self-cleaning cycle also cuts down on manual scrubbing. You just add a cleaning solution, run the cycle, and the system flushes the barrel and hopper. It's not a completely hands-off process. You still have to disassemble the hopper and wipe down external surfaces, but it's far less labor-intensive than a traditional churn that requires disassembly after each use. Durability is something you can't gauge from a spec sheet alone, but the machine's construction feels solid. The housing is metal, the motor is encased, and the hoses are reinforced. For a commercial environment, that matters because you'll be pulling the unit on and off the countertop, cleaning it, and possibly moving it between locations. The only drawback I could see is the weight. At roughly 70 kilograms, it's not something you'll want to lift daily. If you're planning a permanent countertop installation, that's fine, but a food truck that needs to reconfigure space might find the heft a bit of a logistical hurdle. Who should consider buying this VEVOR machine? If you're operating a small to medium snack shop, a CAF that wants to add a soft serve line without a massive capital outlay, or a pop-up dessert booth that expects steady traffic, this unit hits a sweet spot. The